What's the scariest thing that's ever woken you up during the middle of the night? My almost 4-year-old standing at my bedside staring right at me. Once my eyes were open she said, "I brought the monsters in here," then went back to bed. "Thanks kid, I had you, so they'd go in your room." Was a teenager living in a pitch black basement room. Had a strobe light because, I don't know, teenagers are weird. Apparently the on/off switch was loose and moved to on. You don't know fear until you wake up in the middle of the night in a pitch black room with a strobe light flashing. Woke up to the sound of kids laughing outside my bedroom window. It was 3 a.m. I opened the window, living on the first story of an apartment, and came face to face with a coyote. A gurgling sound and the smell of a warm shart. I thought I crapped the bed, but it turns out the city sewer system backed up and flooded into my house. In hindsight, crapping the bed would have been much easier to clean up. Woke up in the middle of the night to what I thought was my blanket all crammed up between me and the wall. It was uncomfortable, so I went to move it, but instead of a blanket I touched human skin. Of course I immediately freaked the F out, and I'm now wide awake wondering what the sh to do as I lay in the dark with this thing laying next to me. So I gather up my courage, reach over and grab it, and yank it up, so I can see what it is. It was storming and lightning flashed very dramatically at the same moment, while I realize I'm holding my own arm. I guess I'd been sleeping on my arm, and it went so numb that I couldn't even tell I was touching it. Haven't laughed that hard in a while. At uni, my bedroom was on the ground floor of the house. I was woken up around 4 a.m. by scratching and heavy breathing at my window, which I tried to ignore for 20 minutes hoping that whoever it was would F off. It was a long 20 minutes of trying not to sh myself off. They did not F, so I decided to go out the front door to kindly ask them to cease their scratching and heavy breathing. Turned out it was one of my housemates who was absolutely off his tit, lost his keys, wallet, and phone on a night out. He thought scratching on my window would be better than knocking on the door or ringing the doorbell. Bedroom attic, cupboards built into the wall. Wake up to scratching, thud, more scratching, thud, more scratching. WTF is going on? One of the cupboard doors swings open on its own accord. See eyes, then little hands. Then this dog-sized black silhouette comes out, romps around the room, out the bedroom door, downstairs. I repaired a hole in the roof that day, entombing a trash panda by accident. I made some sounds I wasn't proud of. Was up blasting music at about 3 a.m. drinking by myself. I live in the country, so it's all rich snobs' cottages and empty forests, so nobody around. I go to watch a movie and turn off my stereo, and as I did I heard footsteps somewhere in my house. Not light but like a work boot. I drunkenly grab the most weapon-y thing I had, which was a pocket knife, and go running out. For some ungodly reason there was a deer in my kitchen just standing there. It had somehow gotten in somewhere, but the thing is that everything was locked. My brother's friend broke into the house once while I was sleeping on the couch, and I woke up to him in the fridge. I didn't know who he was, so I stayed silent. I was 9, I think. Lightning hit the tree outside my house. The bang was so loud I saw myself in the third person and honestly thought I died. I can't even explain how that happened. To cats mating under my window. My god, it sounded like a convention of demons. This past summer I woke up to the sound of someone screaming in the most horrible way. I went onto my balcony and saw a woman laying on the ground right outside my building, holding her stomach with people standing around her. She got into an argument with another woman at a crosswalk, and the other woman pulled a shotgun out of her trunk and shot her in the stomach. The victim survived. Woke up groggy, out of sleep paralysis. Went to push off the bed and realized my left arm is gone. There's no way, right? Maybe my arm had just fallen out. Reach over with my right arm to feel for my left arm and freak the F out because all I feel is my torso. Genuinely freak out for a minute, checking and rechecking. My arm is literally gone. And then I felt human skin above my head. My arm had fallen asleep over my head and behind the pillow. Apparently my armpit had played a little joke on my brain and reported back as being a shoulder stump. I'm a professional firefighter. When we are on shift at night we are allowed to sleep. It's pretty routine to get woken up for any kind of emergency that we respond to, from shootings to car wrecks to house fires with people trapped. When we catch a run, the bunk room lights come on, and there's a very gentle beeping sound that is meant to wake us gently, instead of jolting us awake and spiking our blood pressure before the dispatcher goes on the air to tell us where we are going and why. A few weeks ago at around 3 AM, the lights came on and there was a different sound. It was an alarm that sounded like the world was ending. We all sprang out of our bunks, wide-eyed, ready for battle. Then the dispatcher came on the air to tell us that the National Weather Service had issued a winter storm warning, effective 2 days in the future, in a city that's no stranger to winter weather. We were very confused. The smell of smoke. We couldn't find the smoke, so our first thought was that our girls were burning to death in their rooms. Woke us up in an instant. Thankfully everything in our apartment was okay. Our downstairs neighbors were the ones who had a fire, and it was out by the time we got down there to check. I reported them to our landlords because it wasn't smoke detectors that woke us up. It was the smell of smoke. I'm 99% sure they unplugged this or pulled out the batteries. If the fire had been any bigger, I'm worried we wouldn't have been told and could have either caught fire ourselves or had dangerous levels of smoke inhalation. A loud bang downstairs, and then my dog zooming to the front door and snarling. By the time I had grabbed my gun and got downstairs, whoever it was already peeling out of the driveway. I guess they assumed the house we had just moved into was still unoccupied and got the scare of their lives. Looks like they were trying to kick the door down to gain access. My good boy got some steak the next day as a reward. Well, it's not nearly as scary as the other things that people have talked about, but I like to listen to YouTube on autoplay while I sleep sometimes. One time I woke up in the middle of the night to some of the most ear-grating, terrifying sounds I've ever heard. After spending a bit of time freaking out, I realized it was from my phone. Apparently, YouTube decided to play songs by some random artist I've never heard of called Passenger of Sh, which is some sort of demonic scraping black metal breakcore band. Scared the shit out of me. I was 11. Woke up to the sound of screaming and shouting. My cousin, who was living with us, was about 17, and in my room holding the door from being opened. On the other side of the door was my mother screaming to be let in. My sister was in the bunk under mine, and she was crying. Suddenly my cousin comes to and opens the door. My mom rushes in and asks my cousin and us if we were okay. There was commotion in the hallway and living room, but I couldn't tell what it was. When I peeked out of the doorway, I saw my stepfather holding a small .22 caliber rifle looking out the windows frantically. Suddenly cops show up and start arresting my stepdad. My mom is yelling at the police, and I'm sitting there with my cousin and sister like WTF. We all notice the broken sliding glass door and suddenly realize there are large bullet holes all over our house, through the entertainment center, and above the couch, where my cousin was sleeping just minutes before. I guess what happened is someone was shooting at some people walking by our apartment and the stray bullets all hit our place. My cousin woke up and immediately thought people were inside shooting us, so he ran to the kids' room and kept anyone from coming in like a badass. My mom woke up and immediately thought to check on us, but couldn't get into the room because of my cousin. My stepdad grabbed his gun out of instinct. The cops showed up and assumed my stepdad was the shooter and arrested him. All in all, a pretty fun night. A bat in my bedroom, making sounds I didn't realize bats could even make, so I wasn't able to understand it was a bat until I saw it. Weird metallic scraping noises coming from my bedroom window 4 nights on end. It freaked me out so much that eventually I stopped sleeping in my room. Long story short, I discovered a few years afterwards that someone had tried to pry open my window so much that they had scraped the paint off the outside of the window frame. My sister laughing. She had been dead for about a week. I was staying at my parents' house and was just sleeping on the couch. My dad had passed out in his armchair on the other side of the house and my mom was upstairs in the bedroom. My sister's laughter came from the kitchen, which was sort of between where we all were, and sure enough we all converged on the kitchen because we all heard it. Needless to say, we were freaking out a bit. Her phone, which had died, was plugged into a charger in the kitchen. It had turned itself on and begun playing a video of her laughing and playing with her new puppy. We all just stood there and listened to it, then turned it off and went to bed without really talking about it. None of us believe in paranormal stuff, and I'm a real atheist slash skeptic, but it was really jarring tech-based oddity to wake up to. I heard a gigantic crash, which I presume to mean my cat just found a way to knock my TV or my entire gaming shelf over, but when I went out to see, nothing was wrong. Not even the slightest hint something had fallen. I woke up in the middle of the night to a rustling sound at my bedroom window. I wasn't sure if I had dreamed the noise or not, and stared sleepily at the window for a few seconds. Very slowly my window began to slide open, long thin fingers gripping the glass. My eyes widened. My heart pounded. My breathing froze. For a moment I was paralyzed with pure fear. Something was silently sliding my window open in the dead of night and coming into my room. My fear soon turned into some kind of primal aggression. As quietly as I could I rose out of my bed and reached for the baseball bat underneath it. The dark shape was now climbing through my curtains, its lanky arms reaching down to my floor, crawling, almost slithering in. I turned on the light and took a few fast steps toward the creature with the baseball bat raised ready to deal a crushing blow when I suddenly stopped. It was my little sister high as a refine kite. She had forgot her keys, was locked out, and didn't want to wake my parents in the middle of the night while stoned. She thought all this was pretty funny and proceeded to go to her room and pass out. I laid in bed and stared at my ceiling for a while, adrenaline still pumping, thinking about my almost confrontation with some sort of alien, monster, demon, which turned out to be my stoned sister. Thankfully I turned the light on before I swung. A baby crying when we didn't have a baby at the time.